Hey, it's Brian Tucker with A2K Partners. Thanks for joining me on this session of Citrix Converge. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about accelerating sales ecosystem using Citrix Microapps. What I really want to do is walk you through an actual real-world scenario where we help the customer take various workflows that they use day-to-day to sell across 5 of their vendors, which were major SaaS cloud providers. We jumped in and helped them solve some real-world problems. And let's talk about some of the real challenges they had with inside of their organization. Like I said, they were a multi-vendor reseller sales organization, so they had to support all of these reseller sales transactions. They had multiple sales processes that fed into multiple delivery processes. And of course, along that, lots of different workflows. And as an organization that was challenged to grow and scale at a rapid pace, they were finding themselves in a situation where they really needed to take a step back and look at how they were going to address some of the breakdowns that they had throughout their process. And of course, supporting this many vendors, they had multiple systems of record that they were transacting across, multiple monthly, quarterly, and yearly closing cycles that hit at different times for each one of their vendors, and not only for them, but also for themselves as their business internally. They had a very lean headcount that out of nowhere was hit, obviously, like everybody else with the pandemic and labor shortage that we're struggling with right now. And they had a need to scale their business very rapidly. And what we had found out when we initially met with them was that they were already planning and started on their digital transformation journey. And their plan was to build a ground-up platform from scratch in-house, and they really needed to expedite their efforts because they were already behind schedule. Now, some of the business objectives that they had tasked us with were around centralizing all of the work across all of their vendors in a single pane of glass, as they called it. And we know that the Citrix Workspace with Intelligence platform allows people to do that. And they also wanted to eliminate any of the big bottlenecks that they had around their exceptions and escalation process during the sales cycle, particularly those that were tied to revenue and also ensuring that opportunities got closed by the end of the month or the quarter or whatever it was that they had. They wanted to simplify and automate the manual work that they had currently wherever possible, cut down the number of actions that each person had to take on any particular deal, and also accelerate selling wherever they could. And the final thing that was very important, not only to the executive leadership, but also the frontline managers and the reps themselves individually, were getting real-time notification and visibility into the status of where every opportunity was at. Because one of the things that they are always talking about is they want to make sure that they or nobody else that they're tied to are put in a position where they're going to drop the ball. So naturally, when we started with this customer, one of the things that they said to us was that they wanted us to immediately find their pain and identify some quick wins. So what we agreed to do was perform a light discovery across all of their sales reps. Now, a lot of times what we find out when we go into organizations, that there's a huge disconnect between the needs of the managers or what the managers think their workforce needs versus what the workforce believes that they need in order for them to do their job successfully and meet the expectations of their managers. So we start out in a very simple way. And what we do is we perform a light discovery across all of the sales reps. These are very simple and straightforward. It's a 5-minute anonymous survey. And what we do is we ask a series of questions, and we allow them to give us just anonymous, free-form answers so that they have a voice to be heard and that their opinion matters, which is very important in today's workplace. As we do this, we're able to quickly reveal opportunities to improve their overall experience, enable them to be included and engaged in the solutioning and value creation process, and get the stakeholders and, most importantly, the workforce to an aha moment as early as we possibly can. Because what happens is as soon as they're able to see their work product, their data that they're actually intimate with, and the things that they do today on a data basis with inside the workspace and inside a microapp, suddenly it's like this magical thing happens where they realize there's just so much more that they could bring to the table and bring forth as part of the more deeper dive discovery that we could help them begin to integrate and automate with inside of the workspace to drive more value. So what I want to show you here is some examples of the questions that we asked them. And I really want to just open your mind up to just how simple this is. Oftentimes we go into organizations and we see them struggling. We know they have very, very difficult challenges. But what we do is we zoom out and we actually ask some very simple questions. And what I'm going to do is just share you a sample of some of the types of questions that we ask and how those answers came back and how it began to take us to some of the issues that they were struggling with. So if you notice the first question on the left-hand side, very simple question. What are the top 5 things that are the most frustrating to initiate and execute? And what you're seeing down below here is a output that has been filtered and weighted based on several things, things like the number of answers. There's also a lot of information that's provided with this that has a tremendous amount of emotion in the answers. A lot of it is negative emotion, frustration, aggravation, really even some cases begging to make some changes inside their organization. So as we ask these questions, we actually give us the straight answers exactly the way that they believe they need to be. So what you're seeing here is they're obviously voicing some things around ordering, quoting, reporting, renewals. And then as you can see in the left-hand corner there, I've got a couple of systems of record here. So what we're seeing here is that they're saying that in these areas, they're dealing with some pain around initiating and executing these types of things, particularly in SAP and Zoho, which happens to be one of their CRMs that they're using with a couple of their vendors, particularly. Now, as we move to the right-hand side, you can see we ask yet again another flavor of this question, which is, what are the top 3 things that you want to have visibility to, but you have to go searching or finding or switching applications to find it? And not surprisingly enough, you'll see some similarities in their answers, which is they're having some issues with the credit lines. They're having some issues with the ordering. And as we move through this, you're going to start to see more and more some similarities so we can start to see a pattern of where some of the pain is. So I'm going to go ahead and give you 2 more examples of the questions that we asked. So in this one, what are the top 3 things that you want to be automatically notified of when they occur? Again, we're starting to see a larger pattern here. Credit, ordering, we're seeing things that are past due, invoicing, received, accounts, et cetera. And as we go off to the right-hand side, we're going to ask just one more question around this, which are what are the top 3 things that take way too long for you to approve or get approved? And as you can see here, again, more financing, credit, approvals, deals. And you can see there the SAP on the left-hand side. Again, you can see the Zoho. So what we're seeing here is not only a pattern of pain for this customer, but they're also revealing to us what the system of record is that they're using that is associated with this pain. Now, I'm going to share with you just one more set of questions here, where we specifically asked, what are the top 3 apps you rely on to do your job? And you can see here, we've got just a clear picture into what it is and where they're focusing the majority of their time at. So if we were to take a look at the apps that they use on a day-to-day basis, and we looked at those that were the most productive and the least productive, we would obviously want to zoom right here in on this piece first to drill down and find out more information. And then if you look off to the right, in all of the questions that we asked, again, this is just a sampling, you're going to see the top 25 responses that came back. So specifically tied to what we already looked at. You can see here, there's something really nasty going on with the ordering process, the credit lines, the quoting, the financing. It's somewhere in SAP and it's somewhere in Zoho. So we're going to move a little bit further and talk a little bit more in terms of what we actually found when we did some digging. Okay, early outcomes and aha moments. We did 4 automations in 4 weeks for them as part of a proof of value. Essentially, here are the things that we found. The first one was around past due accounts by vendor. They had no way to go into one place to actually pull up and find out what accounts were past due. What they were doing was they were spending a tremendous amount of time, hours and hours and hours, and some people, this was even almost becoming their full-time job, of going into multiple systems of record, multiple spreadsheets that were being provided by their vendors, and going in and doing manual sorts and queries, and outputs with all of these from scratch every single time because the data was not coming across the same way twice. What we did was we put a process in place where we consolidated all this reporting and automated it and put it into a microapp. So at the push of the button, they could pull this up and they could review all of this, as well as be notified anytime anything was past due automatically. The second one was they were not being notified of order rejections by a vendor. They wouldn't find out until the very last minute when they went to go close something out near the end of the quarter that there was a problem with the order. So what we did was we put in a notification system that allowed them to be automatically notified anytime an order was rejected by the vendor and the reason why that it was, so they could actually take action on that and get it unstuck and move the ball forward. The third one was pretty major. As you saw throughout our pattern, was around the credit balance reports by reseller. And that's also tied to the last one, which is being notified when the credit line opens up again. Essentially, what was happening is they had no system in place to be notified when someone was getting near or over their credit limit. So what would happen is the salesperson would go in to do a deal, and suddenly it would go into a delay pattern for weeks and weeks and weeks because nobody would know that they were out of their credit limit. So somebody would have to send an email. It would go out into a black hole. Nobody would know who had the ball on it. So what we did was we put a process in place that automated all that. So anytime there was an issue with the credit, they could be notified of it immediately so that it wouldn't delay the deal. And they could take an action right from the micro app that would trigger an internal escalation process back to the outside groups that supported the sales process, one of those being finance and one of those being legal, to get that all unstuck. So let's talk about the outcomes and the values. So from a productivity perspective, we were able to deliver clear insights that allowed the executive leadership to meet or exceed the objectives that we were after, have them far more visibility into what was going on, especially if there was an exception or an escalation. And also, as a result of automating all of these manual reports that they were parsing and pulling together, with so much time spent, we were able to boost their output and take their time and energy and shift that into areas that allowed them to have about 20% more of their time and energy freed up for more proactive selling activities, which is the best thing you could possibly do given this organization situation. From a process perspective, we minimize all of those reactive end of quarter sales escalations and stop downs in the sales process. That was a huge win for them. We completely eliminated their credit processing issues. We were also able to help them more assure their end of quarter financial forecasting and also integrating all of those external department touch points that were supporting sales and sales operations. From a tools perspective, we extended multiple systems of record to expedite the deal registration and integrate the quoting in one place, putting the data back into Zoho and then on into SAP if that's what they needed. We completely eliminated their need to develop their homegrown solution from scratch. In fact, when we demoed the workspace with intelligence capability the very first time for them, it was like a miracle had happened in front of them. It was absolutely everything that they were planning to do with respect to the famous words that we always hear, everything in a single pane of glass. And we all know that workspace with intelligence is far much more than that. And then finally, we completely leapfrogged their ability to integrate, standardize, and scale their business with the resources that they had at times of the pandemic and also a labor shortage. So where do we go from here? We're going to continue to work with them to create more team performance enhancements. Like I said, once we had that first aha moment, walk them through those first 4 use cases, then it was just everything was forthcoming to us to tell us, where should we be looking next? And then we were able to go in and not only do the subjective analysis that we typically do, but also an objective analysis with specific tools that we have that show us exactly how much time they're spending doing what they're doing, what pieces are manual, what pieces of it can be automated, and fast tracking them back up into the platform. We're also looking at connecting them outside of their business on out into their vendor ecosystem CRMs and automating the processes, not only with each one of their vendor CRMs, but also integrating that for them with inside of the workspace so that they're able to work across multiple vendors and cross-sell and upsell. This is a key driver to double the business growth for their organization and really creating those differentiating digital experiences that businesses are expecting in 2021 and beyond. Once again, this has been Brian Tucker with A2K Partners. Thanks again for joining me here at Digital Converge 2021, and we hope to see you next year.